Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel for the 14th episode of the Road to FIDE Master series, in which I will cover the 5th round of the Chess Eagles Chess Festival. After recording 2 wins in a row, nice ones from the previous 2 rounds, I felt like okay, let's record 3rd game in a row. So I may not change my t-shirt, but it's another day, another game, another analysis for you. So how did the game go? Let's see. So in the game I was paired with Paweł Wochinski. In general I was a sole leader with only him behind me with half of a point less, and then many players with 1 point down, meaning that if I win this game I should be a clear favorite to win the whole tournament, because as you may remember it was only consisting of 7 rounds. So with such mindset I decided that okay, I want to win the game, and a draw might not be as bad, especially because it was the 3rd round during the day. I had black pieces, so I was kind of tired as everyone else in the tournament, and black pieces, well, a draw is always nice. My opponent opted for e4 and I did not have much time for preparation, so I was basing only on the games that I saw during this specific tournament. And I saw that just 1 round before he opted for the fantasy variation against the Caro-Kann, so I decided okay, maybe let's check his knowledge for the 2nd time that day and play Caro-Kann myself. But to my surprise he did not play the fantasy variation, but he played the knight c3 variation. But fortunately I also now, let's say, some theory in here. So after I played knight f6 and we went to a variation that is kind of trendy lately. And the idea is that okay, I am having the doubled pawns, but for that I have quite a solid position on the king side. So the game continues with c3, bishop d3, knight e2, and I believe at this point it's the last moment for the opponent to play queen c2, creating the battery to my pawn, making me really to push h5, getting into the, let's say, main line of the variation. However, my opponent went with a short castle initially, and I was like, okay, do I really need to push h5 now? Because usually you don't want to do it, and in the main line you have to, because you are, let's say, pressured to do it. And in here I'm not, so I just simply developed my knight to d7 and to f8, not making this weakness, right? So I felt like, okay, already in the opening I should be more than fine. He opted for bishop e3 now, queen c7, making the battery of my own, h3 protecting the pawn, g6 closing the diagonal and preparing f5, because I would really love to push f5, f4, maybe even f3 till the end. My opponent now decides to play c4, which is always a useful move in such structure, getting the control over the center of the board. Knight e6 I've played mainly due to the fact that I did not want to commit to f5 yet, and knight on e6 is placed quite well, at least that's what I thought. At this point I already started thinking about alternatives like b6, but I did not like the idea of b6 because it would mean that I am here just to play passively, and I was, let's say, very much focused on the kingside attack. I had already a tunnel vision for the sacrifices, so stay tuned for them because those will be crazy ones, maybe too crazy, we'll see. Anyway, the other alternative would be to push f5 immediately, but I didn't like the variation in which after c5 I can not yet play f4, because if he takes I cannot take his bishop because my queen will be lost, so I would have to play an intermediate move, which is bishop h2 and then f4. And the idea is that if he drops the bishop back now I can try to push f3, so he has to accept the bishop there, but after me accepting the bishop he drop backs the king. And in here, even though computer likes it the most as the variation as a whole, I did not like the fact that I've opened both the line and the diagonal for my king, and especially f7 square, so I felt like okay, I might have some more better options, and for that reason I decided to play it slow that time and just simply play knight e6. At this point my opponent went with queen d2, which I did not understand at the time, because I'm not sure what's the purpose of this move. Maybe simply protecting, overprotecting the bishop or something, not so sure. And for me it was a green light to push f5 finally. And the idea was that at this point c5 is not working, mainly due to the fact that this queen is misplaced. And I was covering mostly c5 move, maybe f4, maybe some other, and when my opponent reached with his hand in order to grab the central pawn, I was expecting c5. And guys, after c5 I'm simply winning. Bishop h2 check, f4 now, the bishop is blocked, right? So it's like they cannot not accept the bishop on h2, and if they do, in here there is the additional attack that I had not got before, and this is winning, right? I'm winning a queen, and for this reason I would just be winning the bishop, because perhaps at this point white would rather give away the bishop, not the queen. So my opponent was grabbing for the pawn and he pushed d5. And I was like, okay, I did not expect this move, but obviously it's a very good one. It's my, let's say, fault that I did not expect it. I was so, happy about the possibilities of delivering some tricks that I forgot about normal chess. And this will be the, let's say, theme of the whole game. So how did the game continue? I played knight c5, my opponent took on c5, allowing me to get the bishop pair. Obviously the position is not opened yet, so I cannot use this bishop pair that well. And at this point I felt, okay, I played a normal developing move, everything is so solid, so I will try to stay that way, and I will simply develop my last pieces, which are the rooks. So I decided to create a battery on the e file. In the meantime, my opponent decided to change the position of his bishop, and guys, this is where the tricks begin. I mean, I was looking forward to try to play them for like last 3 to 4 moves maybe, but at this point I really thought they may work. So what's the move? I'm not sure if you would expect it, but I was thinking about playing rook to e3. And like, what's the point? Well, first point is, if my opponent takes, I take with the bishop and I deliver the double attack, so I win the queen. Seems fair, right? Okay, so let's dive deeper into it. Let's say white just tries to ignore this, and instead of focusing on the rook, they will, let's say, focus on the bishop. What now? Well, now I can try to play there, and you may say, okay, white takes the rook. Oh, sorry, misclick. So what now? I'm winning. Can you see the eval bar? Can you see the move? Queen g3, guys, making use of the spin, and as of now I have at least perpetual check, right? Always I have that in my pocket, but at the same time this king is so weak that I can try to fight for something more. I can also grab the other pawn, because such move would go under this check, and then king g1, queen g4, king h1, here, checkmate. So I can also take the f3 pawn, after which my opponent still has to go there. And at that point I can decide what to do. I can either take a draw, but I felt like it might be something more in here, perhaps due to the fact that I can try to, let's say, push a4 with the idea that later on I will deliver a check, the second one, after which king will go here and there, and then I can deliver final push of f3, threatening with the checkmate here, maybe there, like everywhere, okay? Crushing, just crushing. And I was really hoping for that to work out, but then I realized, okay, after b4 rook takes f3, instead of focusing on the rook, opponent might try to just simply take the bishop. And after that move, I decided that I will play queen f4, solving the problem of the not protected rook, and that was also trapped, because if he exchanges, well, I now have an amazing rook, and if he does not exchange, and if he goes like maybe somewhere here, I might try to still just simply maybe move my rook, and I'm hitting this pawn, maybe with the ideas like this. So I felt like I might be okay. Obviously on b7 there is some pressure, so there is like the fire on the board, but I was really hoping to see it, so I was happy with such option. So guys, if rook e3 is well working against b4, what else can the opponent do, right? So the idea was that he can also try to play d6, and the idea is simple. He is closing out this diagonal, making my pieces not so well coordinated anymore, and this was the real problem of like how to deal with it. And I felt like maybe queen d8 would be working, still the rook cannot be taken, still after b4, okay, not still, but after b4 I have a new possibility of perhaps going here, trying to attack the knight with both my pieces, so maybe that would work, and then maybe bishop d4 and so on. So quite a sharp position, but I felt like, okay, I'm just holding, and computer agrees, let's say. So d6 is okay, b4 is okay, can I play the move? And the answer is no. Unfortunately no, because opponent have one crushing move, which is knight a4, which perhaps you would not expect. But the point is that, same as before, this move is targeting the bishop, but it is doing so in a more effective way, because if I now take on f3 as I did when the b4 was played, at this point I don't really have this queen f4 idea that I had in the b4 variation, because at the end of this variation my bishop is hanging, and this is the biggest difference, and because of that difference rook e3, guys, is not working. And as I've said, the theme of this game will be chances that I hoped to be working but they will never be working, because I spent a lot of time on this trick, I spent a lot of time on some previous tricks and so on, but it's just simply not possible to do anything like that, and unfortunately I cannot play such a nicely looking move. Instead I have to opt for something. As I've said, I already lost a lot of time, so I opted for simply playing a5, not allowing to play b4, maybe allowing myself to have this good square on a7, and maybe then trying to still go for rook e3. If at one point it's not working, you cannot just say, okay, it will never work again, right? I'm a believer, I wanted to make it work. But this was perhaps the core of my problems, that I was trying to saw some ghosts in the position that there were no ghosts, if you know what I mean, like there are no possibilities to really make it work, and I really tried to do it, abandoning really the strategical aspect of the game, which is also very crucial, because in no time I will be under a big pressure. How? My opponent went with rook f2 d1 move, and I continued with my idea, which is rook bishop a7, but after d6 and then b4, I am on the edge of strategically losing the game, because c5 might be incoming, and my bishops, both of them, will be terrible ones, right? And I'm caring mostly about this one, because it used to be a good one, and after c5 it will be the worst one, so there is the problem. Not only that, in the analysis, computer showed me that I can play bishop d6. If I wanted to help myself out with some tricks, this was the trick. Well, what's that about, right? Can't the opponent just take here and here? Well, he can't, because I can now try to deliver such a check. Let's say this is the puzzle rush number 30 on chess.com when you do the puzzle rushes. What's the idea? If he takes, I can take his queen, because this rook was overloaded and my rook is protected, so I am getting the queen in the end. And if he tries to play here, I can simply take the queen and then take the rook, because of the x-ray to the rooks. This is the basic tactic, but if you are so focused, you have such a tunnel vision on one thing, then you may miss such spots, and actually this move would be very, very useful strategically, because then perhaps I would be allowed to close out this side of the board and then focus with my batteries on the e-file, on the diagonals, to indeed try to push on the king side. Instead of that, I went with bishop a7, and my position became very, very passive. Not only that, when I was, let's say, settling down for a5, I hoped that in this variation, which I saw actually, I would have queen h4, b6. This was my idea. So from the distance, I felt like, okay, this bishop will not be bad, this bishop will be still a great one, because I have this b6 move. But then b5 is coming. So it's not puzzles, guys. It's not like my opponent is just trying to have fun and is trying to build some Lego construction or whatever. And the problem is that actually I cannot take either of the pawn, because if I take here, opponent will take here. Two passers connected ones with the defense like that, well, I am lost completely. And other way around, it's very similar, just c6, right? Once again, the same two passers. So if I cannot take the pawn with either of the pawn, maybe I can take with the rook. Sure, but not only my opponent can try to go into such position, which I calculated and I felt like I have no real chances of winning ever, because I am just completely closed and no real activity, the pawn is very risky and so on. Maybe perhaps on the way white has something more powerful, and actually they did have that, perhaps with some rook c1 ideas at some point, maybe here, maybe later on, I don't remember, but yeah, the point is that b5 is the move that I did not expect at the beginning. So for those reasons, even though such position occurred on the chessboard, I decided to go with queen c4, hoping that right now b6 would be working. Because for example, let's say that white made a meaningless move, I can now play b6 with the difference that at this point I can then take on c6 with my bishop and then the queen, and the queen is there, not the rook, and the queen is also creating some pressure to the pawn, not allowing the knight to jump here. So I felt like this position might be actually a good candidate to go for something more in the position, even though still somewhere in between, once again, white could have tried something more different, as rook c1, as I've said, hitting the queen this time. Anyway, those were my thought processes, and I felt like rook a to b1 will be just a waste of time because rook belongs on the a file, right? Rook has to stay there because it has to control the a file, making my bishop weaker. And I felt like that, and then when opponent played this move, I felt, okay, so what to play? It was a mistake, inaccuracy, right? And the more I thought about the position, the more I was like speechless, hopeless, and idealess, let's say. Because what can I play really? I started obviously with calculating b6, but one nuance that I've missed, not the first, not the last in this game, was that actually opponent can try to take on a5, which was very strangely looking move, but the point of it is that if I recapture the pawn, either way, here or there, rook b7 is incoming, and this is the idea I've missed. I felt like rook b1 will be played simply to protect the pawn, but as of now, rook got activated, and that's the problem. And because of that, well, I thought maybe I can take on c5 with the rook, right? And then perhaps go into such endgame, but it was not promising. With such two passers, with such pressure to the c6 pawn, I will probably lose it. Rook a1 perhaps would be played and helping the pawn move forward. I was not getting a good vibe about this position, and for those reasons b6 cannot be played. If b6 cannot be played, I am out of moves, as I've said. I decided to try to go for some crazy lines like a4 even, trying to block this pressure and then play b6, with the idea that if opponent takes my pawn, I have queen a6. This variation was not working because of knight b2 move, and the idea is that I cannot really take a pawn because rook a1 now and the bishop will be lost. So a4 is not working. So I felt, okay, a4 is not working, maybe I will go to a6 immediately with the queen and then perhaps play b6, right? But at that point I did not like the fact that opponent might try to play b5, close my queen completely, now play knight d5, and white is not really caring much about the pawn that they just sacrificed, the other one, because this knight is jumping everywhere. Here or here with the triple fork, like plenty of options, I'm simply lost. So I cannot play at this point either b6 or a4 or queen a6. What can I play? Maybe b5, right? Because then taking the pawn en passant would be actually opening my bishop. I would be happy, but opponent does not have to take it, and my bishop will be closed forever. No idea how it would get out. So for all those reasons, I decided that I will just simply take on b4, accept my fate, let's say, and try to then maybe go for b6. In here, b6 is once again not working due to tactical reasons that I've missed from the distance, because b6 now would be met with rook a1, hitting my bishop, getting the pawn, and even though initially I evaluated this position as a good one because I felt like I am in no trouble in terms of material and those two pawns might be some weaknesses, I then realized that after this move here, rook going back to d5, I will simply lose some material. What I didn't see though is one more trick similar to the one that I've already missed, because I can play actually rook bishop b8, and after he takes my bishop I can deliver the checkmate. Pretty amazing defensive active resource, let's say. But yeah, very hard to spot this when you consider such position from this moment onwards. If you play b6, play for the exchanges and so on, very hard to see such a point at the end of the variation, and because of that I did not play b6 at this point either. So what did I do? I played bishop b8 with basically one last chance, one last try, And after knight a4 that I was kind of baiting the opponent to play, trying to jump there, I went back with the bishop and I offered a draw. I did not even have any other idea what to do, and I felt like maybe because I went here and there, he might be thinking that the knight is useful here, maybe he will also jump back, and a draw offer might be coming in a good moment. That was my thought process, but obviously at this point I'm clearly much worse strategically. I am low on time, and perhaps it's just too late for a draw offer. Maybe earlier on my opponent would agree to that. At this point he did not. He just, let's say, smiled and continued playing. He opted for rook a1, which is a logical move, going back to the open file. At this point I have to run away with the queen because knight b2 with rook takes a7 is a problem, and I've decided to go to e6 in time trouble, basically losing a exchange on the spot because after knight b2, bishop b8, knight d3, my rook is trapped, and at this point I felt just hopeless, so I just wanted to play fast moves, maybe getting some counterplay. So I played rook e4 in order to undouble my pawns and try to, let's say, rush with them. But at this point, obviously, the problem is that my opponent can try to exchange the queens and will do so successfully. But I felt, okay, nothing's lost yet. I will just simply push my king, push my pawns to the center. Maybe I will somehow scare the opponent or something. So, where was the one last trick, one last chance that I had? Basically somewhere at the... okay, no. Not my trick. Where was the opponent's chance to win the game fast? He could have played d7, which I know he did not like because of bishop c7 takes, and there is no clear way how to progress with a pawn. However, he has one amazing maneuver, which is knight c8 with the idea of knight d6 and knight b7. Even if I try to somehow cover the d8 square, my pawn will be lost, and with additional pawn lost, I'm simply lost. Triple lose. And yeah, d7 with knight c8 was the idea. Obviously not easy to spot, and white is in no rush, so they can play whatever they want. They opted for rook a5, and at this point I played f4, takes, rook a3, and this is the moment, guys. This is actually a moment in which I could have tried to escape. How? I could have played bishop c7 move with the idea that he cannot really take the bishop because I will then take his rook, and maybe even he will be able to promote the queen anyway. I will have to give away my bishop, but I do not care. At least I will get few more pawns here and there, for example, like that, and then I might have some drawing chances even while being a knight down, because opponent would not have too many pawns. And the other idea is, if he does not take my bishop but rather retreat the knight, because the idea of bishop c7 itself is to attack the knight and try to overload the pawn, I can now try to give a check and finally get away with the bishop. After like 20 moves of him being very sad on those two squares, I would be able to escape. And actually you can see that maybe I will be, launching some checkmating patterns with the bishop pair, with the open file and so on. Perhaps objectively position is still lost, but at least I would have some better chance than in the game. And in the game I just missed this chance completely because of the time trouble. I simply pushed f3, then h4, not really achieving much because at this point I have no other way to progress further. Knight is coming to e3, holding this square, holding the pawn pushes, like everything, so the knight is a beast here, and with that white can simply get back with the rooks to the open files, and he does that. I decided to give myself one more try of playing b6, but obviously it will not be working due to the double stack on the a file. I have to go away, and after some exchanges my opponent created a passer with which he is clearly winning with rook a8, with b8 to follow, and that's finally the moment when I resigned the game. So guys, a pretty good game from my opponent's perspective. I felt like I was not sure where did I lose the game, and actually the review maybe will say it, but I lost the game with the maneuver that I was mostly proud about, which is this queen lift that you may remember, somewhere around this point. In here I am still, let me turn myself off, around equality, and after queen d8, queen h4, queen c4, all of a sudden I'm lost. And I was so happy with all this maneuver, you know? But yeah, it is what it is. Apparently it was a mistake because I am lacking the initiative here and there. So that's that. The position and the game itself was quite a complex one. I was happy with the way I was playing, but perhaps I wasted far too much time in here on this rook e3 crazy idea, because remember, this is the classical game but with only 60 minutes on the clock at the very beginning of the game. So when I spent, let's say, 15 out of the 60 for just this one idea, well, it's like 15 too much, or 14, you know? So yeah, that's that. I lost the game because of some close gaps, minimal, you know, differences between me and the opponent. He played a very nice game with over 90% accuracy, so very nice of him. And with that, unfortunately, I did not get 5 out of 5, I get 4. He is the leader now, so I have to, you know, get back to him. And will that be the case during the last day of the tournament? We'll see. 2 more rounds to cover, so expect them tomorrow and the day after, round number 6 and 7. Stay tuned for them. If you don't want to miss them out, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and with that, thank you all for watching. We'll see each other in the next one. Bye bye.